I was 12 when this happened. Usually, my younger brother, who would have been about 10 at this point, and I would walk home from the bus stop after school. Both of our parents worked, and we would spend a few hours home alone together before mother got home from the senior center she was working for. We did fine on our own, and by then I knew how to cook safely and to keep the house locked up, and the neighbors usually kept an eye out for anyone on the property, etc. Normally, my little brother would be a bit ahead of me and make it to the house first, but this particular day he had taken the bus to a friend's house. I walked home and into the house and went straight to the bathroom to have a pee, as was my daily routine after school. After washing my hands, I moved into the kitchen to find a snack. At this point, it hadn't even occurred to me that I didn't have to use my key to open the front door. The house was always locked when I got home. The only excuse I can make for this, that I was a teenager and I was just glad to be out of school. So completely oblivious, I made myself a sandwich and sit down at the kitchen table to munch. A couple minutes pass. I'm feeling pretty dang good to be home and enjoying my ham and cheese when I hear a noise at the back of the house. It sounds like a couple of footsteps. At this point, I start to freak out a bit and try to remember if the door was locked when I came in or not. I can't remember. I begin making my way slowly toward the back of the house where the sound is coming from. I hear it again. A couple of shuffling steps and then silence. There's someone in the back bedroom, my room, moving around. I sit completely still for a few seconds, trying not to make any noise to alert the intruder or let them know that a 12-year-old girl is home alone in the house. I hear the footsteps again. Whoever this person is, they didn't sound like they were in a hurry, so I figured they must not have realized I was there yet. I carefully made my way out into the yard and the sunlight of 4 o'clock. I ran as soon as my feet were off the porch and got one of the neighbors to come back over with me. He was a friend of the family that lived really close and kept an eye on our place a lot of the time. He tells me to go into his yard and wait there. I have a clear view of my house from this yard, and I agree that it's a good spot. He tells me to call 911 if he isn't back outside within 5 minutes. I waited in his yard for probably 2 minutes before I started thinking that he must be dead or dying, and I was debating whether or not to call the cops when my neighbor comes out in my front yard with some guy I've never seen before. He has this guy's arms behind his back and is holding him. He shouts to me to call the cops, and I do, telling them what happened. They showed up and took the guy away. I guess he was wanted in another county for breaking into multiple houses while people were away at work, vacation, etc. So, creepy dude that broke into my house, let's not ever meet again. Night shift in the hotel business is called the audit shift. In limited service hotels like Holiday Inn Express, Red Roof, Comfort Inn, the auditor is likely the only employee on property. In my case, me and 150 hotel rooms, which could be mostly empty, or I could have 600 guests. Checking in people after the accounting day is closed, so after about 1 to 2 a.m. is annoying. You have to charge them manually. Then, if they check out and the room resells, you will have a discrepancy on the books the following night, where it looks like the same room was charged twice. Yada yada yada. So, I would usually not check in someone after 2 a.m. if there was not a reservation. We were super busy one night. I drank a ton of coffee to make it through the night. About 4 a.m. a drunk couple comes in, stumbling up to the desk. I'm feeling generous, so I check them into a first floor room. Limited service hotels are usually relatively small, so it was the very end of a long haul from me. I took photocopies of the dude's driver's license and credit card and gave them the plastic key. I finished my shift at 7 a.m. and go home to sleep. About 11 a.m. my boss starts calling my house. He calls at least 3 times before my roommate will agree to wake me up. When I come to the phone, he asks about the driver's license I took from the drunk couple. Was I sure that was the guy, etc. As best I could remember, yes, and the driver's license matched the credit card. I was thinking they skipped out on the bill. My boss then tells me that there was so much blood in the room that the housekeepers would not go in there. They called the cops and there was a crime scene team on the way. If you know anything about hotel housekeepers, they're a sturdy lot. There's not much having to do with body fluids they have not dealt with usually on a weekly basis. Apparently there was blood pooled on the bed, on the walls, and all over the bathroom and in the tub. I don't think we were ever told what happened after it was handed to the police. We live in a pretty quiet area of southeast London. In general, the area has a bit of a bad reputation, but we live on a quiet residential street, and I've lived in the area pretty much my whole life and not had too much trouble. I live with my husband and 2 children in a rented 2-bedroom house. The property is a little shabby, the paint is peeling on the outside, and there are a few weeds growing up between the stones in the front garden. My friend Annie acts as a nanny for my 2 boys and is quite often at my house during the day. She has her own key, along with me, my husband, and my mum. 2 weeks ago on a Thursday, my managing agent, Melinda, called me to arrange a surveyor to visit the property on the following Tuesday. I agreed on the proviso that the surveyor was escorted by the managing agent or one of her colleagues. Tuesday arrives and Annie is taking the kids out. I get a call on my mobile phone from one of my managing agents, not Melinda, who is at the house with the surveyor and they cannot get in. The key will go in the lock but it will not turn. They try another key to no avail, at which point they called me. They asked for someone to let them in and I told them no one was home. They tried the key again and decided they must have the wrong key. They called me and said that they would leave it and rearrange for a day we could be there. So all pretty normal and boring so far. Here's where it gets a bit odd. Annie arrived home with the kids and called me on the mobile to say she thought the surveyor had been in. There were muddy boot prints from a large-sized work boot from the front door to the living room and halfway up the stairs. Still not thinking anything of it, I called the managing agent when I got home from work and to moan that their surveyor had left such a mess. I asked to speak to Melinda and was told she no longer worked for the company. A new guy called Dave told me he was now looking after the property and that the surveyor had not been in. This struck us a little odd. None of us have boots or feet big enough to leave those footprints. The managing agent, as confused as us, came around with the key he had tried to use that morning. It worked perfectly. The only reason the key doesn't work from the outside is if there's already a key in the lock on the inside. We were all a little freaked out at this point. I called my mom to check she hadn't lost her key. The managing agents assured us they had never lost theirs. We put it down to one of those things. We're all on Wednesday afternoon. I get a call from Annie asking where I am. I tell her I'm at work and she asks where my husband is. I tell her he is also at work, getting a bit annoyed now she knows our schedules. What she said next made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. But someone just tried to open the front door from the outside. Annie was standing in the kitchen when she distinctly heard the sound of someone putting their key in the lock and trying to turn it. As she had her keys in the lock on the inside of the door, whoever was outside couldn't turn the key. There is no mistaking the sound, as it is fairly distinct, and my youngest child, who was 1, ran to the door as she does when someone is at the door. She assumed it was me or my husband and waited for us to knock. When no one did, she went to investigate and no one was there. She told me all this on the phone, and I immediately went home. On arrival, she told me she had heard the same sound at 9:30 a.m. that morning, but had not wanted to worry anyone, and when she heard it again, she knew it was time to call. We had the barrels on our locks changed that day, and touch wood there have been no further instances. What really freaked us out is that when the surveyor came to the house, there must have been somebody inside our house who had a key, and had put their key in the lock from the inside. We thought about the footprints, and our front door opens onto a hallway that leads straight to the living room, but is bisected by the stairs. We think whoever was in our house was about to go into the living room, and when they heard the surveyor trying to get in, they hid on the stairs, then left once the surveyor had gone. We have lived in the same house for 3.5 years. We have never lost our keys. I don't know if the fact our managing agent left is significant. Not sure it was for you, but for your sake, person who was in my house, let's not meet.